So welcome back. I'm very excited about our interview today. Lorin Purifoy began offering intuitive stone healing sessions when she started her private massage and healing arts practice in 2008. She works with grids and is creating in-person and online classes for stones, vibrational remedies, ceremony, and the way she works and connects with the earth. Lorin holds a BA from Indiana University with a major in cultural anthropology and a minor in East Asian studies. She's a certified Chinese stone and crystal medicine practitioner based upon the jade purity lineage and is always guided by her relationship with stones, the earth, and spirit. And I'd like to introduce you to Lorin right now. Come on over, Lorin. Say hi to our rock stars at home.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. So first I want to ask you, how did you get into this? I understand you started when you were doing your body practice, your massage therapy.
Right.
And what made you want to add stones and other things into your work?
Yeah, really it was an intuitive calling. So I think as so many of us, feeling a connection to rocks and crystals often goes back to childhood, and just felt like something that a deeper healing that I wanted to offer for people.
Cool. So I am fascinated. So I've heard that working with stones goes back, like with the Native Americans and other cultures in history. Mm-hmm. I have never seen any evidence of that, but you have studied with this Chinese jade purity lineage, right, which sounds ancient. How far does it go back?
It goes back to the Han Dynasty. So actually, acupuncture, before they use needles, they use stones. So these treatments are utilizing crystals and gems on meridian and acupuncture points. And I also work intuitively with how the stones call and guide me. But primarily I describe it as deep soul work. So a lot of it is shifting epigenetic patterns, so influences that we've received from our lineage, mm-hmm, but also behaviors that we've taken on. Really a lot of it's based on developmental trauma, which isn't necessarily abuse. It's behaviors that we take on to cope, and those carry with us. So looking at essentially what people call shadow work, or behaviors that just aren't leading us into the life that we want. Mm-hmm. These treatments are really powerful for that.
Wow. How did you come across this jade purity lineage and the work? How did you find these people and the work, the studies?
Well, partly I feel like spirit guided me, but also I left Portland in 2013 for a few years, and I went to the mountains of North Carolina. And so my teacher is Sarah Thomas. She's an acupuncturist in Asheville, North Carolina, and she's been studying with Jeffrey Ewan. He's actually the lineage holder. He's an 88th generation stone medicine Taoist priest.
Wow.
And so she's been studying with him for 10 years, and so I did some training with her, and that's how it really just deepened my practice.
Wow, that's just fascinating to me, how far it goes back,
mm-hmm,
you know. So what are some of the different ways you work with crystals and stones?
There are many ways. Mm-hmm. I create vibrational remedies, so similar to flower essences, but working with gems and crystals. So that's usually more like a homeopathic remedy. We can also do gem waters, which is a similar process, but we can work with them with different intentions. Mm-hmm. And then I also do grid work. So I'll be doing some classes around that, and then on the body stone treatments. And I also incorporate them into I work with cacao medicine and different plant medicines, mm-hmm, and ceremony. And so I also incorporate body treatments into those ceremonies. Mm-hmm. So those are a lot of the ways that I work with them.
Cool. And is it a like really channeled stuff that you do, or do you work from like a manual or like a reference guide?
It's a little bit of both. I'd say it's more intuitive, mm-hmm, but I definitely am utilizing the study that I learned with the jade purity lineage, and mm-hmm, really so much of this is about our relationships, mm-hmm, right? And I feel like as we cultivate those and as we move through our life, that support can change. And so for me, it's really, that's why that relationship is important, to really tune in and learn how the stone wants to help us, or the tree, or whatever element we're working with. But the stone medicine's a really big piece of my work. I also have an apothecary line, and each step I utilize stones in that process. So there's a lot of multi-layered effects to it.
Hi, Dave. Thank you. He said it's cool and interesting. By the way, if anybody has any questions out there, please feel free to ask. Now would be the time while we're live. Also, you could ask if we're not live, and I'm sure we'll be able to answer your questions later as well. Let's see. So give us an example of what a typical one-on-one session looks like.
There is
like
no
start, middle, and generally, in general.
Like for the stone medicine treatments, often I we'll check in initially to find out. I really like someone to tune in, again, intuitively. We're often in our head thinking, oh, this is what my primary quote-unquote issue is. But really, when we dive down and we check in with ourselves, something completely different can come up. And so I start from that place, and then it's a combination of what I learned from the stones and how they can shift things, again, on an epigenetic level, and also which stones are calling in to hold space, or other areas that need to be addressed. I create and do a lot of heart treatments, so almost every session incorporates some heart healing in it.
Oh, that's interesting. If you could say, what would be the top 3 issues that people come in for?
Clarity seems to be one of them. I think a lot of the patterns that go back to childhood, ways we've self-sabotaged, the relationships with our parental figures. So healing that, really I'd say a lot of it is that healing the relationship between either the mother or the father. And again, that really goes back to developmental trauma. And I'm fascinated with how our bodies respond, the polyvagal nervous system. I'm a body worker too. So all of these pieces weave together really well, and just giving people that emotional and somatic support that they need.
And so Lorin also works with plant medicine as well, and cacao. Hi, Shelby. So is it just intuitive, like which medicines you would use for each case, each person? Or do people say, well, I want to just work with stones? Or are people open to working with other things?
People are open, but I generally have an intuitive sense, and so I'll bring what I feel might be utilized, and then again, checking in where that person's at and what really calls to them, because I feel like it's a collaborative experience. I view my role as a facilitator. I am also a channel, but holding that space and that possibility for healing, and really it's about the other person. That's really primary of where my intention is coming from.
It reminds me of, have you ever heard of I think it's called the curanderos from Mexico? The healers, and they use all sorts of different modalities depending on what the person needs. Right.
And I also feel that deep soul connection to the earth. I feel we really need that. And as the weather is changing, it's not so much an ideal time, but I'm really wanting to bring people into that deep connection with the earth. I know that that's happening, but I feel it in myself, that that loss that we've had of being out of sync and rhythm and reverence and honor and that symbiotic relationship. And I feel like that's another piece of both my remedies and the stone medicine, and really all that I offer is to really come back into that place.
Nice. Well, I really honor you for that work, because with everybody's disillusionment with organized religion and getting so disconnected and disassociated with spirit and nature, the sacredness of nature. So I really appreciate that you're doing this work. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
If there was one thing that you could inspire us with, like how can we gain that connection back on our own without necessarily having to go, to a session?
Right. Spending time in nature, finding the the allies, the trees, the stones, the plants that really call to you. It can also be the land. I have remedies that I've worked with the land. So finding those and creating a relationship, spending time, having conversation, giving them gifts. You know, just like we would nurture any relationship with a human, it's the same in my experience.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see if I have any other questions. So true, Dave says.
Yeah.
Yay. How can people tune in to their own guidance with working with stones?
That's a great question. Again, I feel like it's about spending time. One way that I recommend is to find a stone that really speaks to you, that you feel drawn to, whether you know the reason why or not. Going into a meditation, you can sleep with the stones and ask them to give you information while through your dreams. Having conversations, carrying it around with you, right? Just getting familiar with it.
Getting to know it.
And then I feel like more information will come.
Right.
So it really is, it's an ongoing relationship. And I feel like different stones will come in at different points in our
I was
life.
just going to say, and then things change.
Absolutely.
And,
Because we're always changing.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah,
cool.
that's good.
So tell us a little bit more about your work with cacao. And like the different ceremony work you do.
Right. I love holding space for people and creating that possibility for transformation. So in 2012, I received intuitive guidance to start holding cacao ceremonies, and I didn't know what that was, but within 3 hours I was connected with Keith, who's known as the cacao shaman in Guatemala. So and again, intuitively, I started making medicine balls that I call bliss balls, infused with my energetic remedies, based on what the intention is of the ceremony that I'm offering. And this cacao stems from its old strains. So virtually all the chocolate that's out there is hybrid because they get large pods. So this cacao that I'm working with it's a medicine. It has around 1,200 constituents.
Wow.
It's the highest.
Wait, what's a constituent?
A constituent I describe it as a medicinal component. So it's filled with neuromodulators and neurotransmitters. It's high in serotonin and theobromine. It's an entheogenic plant medicine. So it can help us have a spiritual experience.
Well, there's a word, entheogenic. Tell me more about that word.
So entheogenics, a lot of people know ayahuasca to be an entheogenic, a plant medicine, peyote, San Pedro. There's a tobacco medicine that I work with that's a liquid. So all of these are plant medicines. Cacao is really beautiful and gentle. It meets you where you're at. So it's really an invitation versus some of the other cacao can be very potent. I was going to say more potent. Cacao can be very potent. But it walks you through the possibilities more than a forced experience.
Probably not as like psychedelic as ayahuasca or something.
No, well, and honestly, I haven't done ayahuasca.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't.
I haven't either, but what I've heard.
Right. And again, I feel
peyote, I've done peyote.
It's so much as where we're at, right, and what we're looking to move through. And there's so many medicines that can be worked with, but the cacao is very gentle. So I often get people into a deep mind or more meditative. We have an intention, we often incorporate ritual, and so when I started doing group stone treatments, cacao wanted to partner with that. And they're really beautiful to pair together because the cacao, I think a lot of us know, opens our heart, but it's also grounding, it heightens sensations because of the constituents that are in it, and it also gives us amazing mental clarity. So lots of possibilities of how to work with it. I really love pairing it with the stones and have ceremony.
I don't think actually a lot of people do know about this cacao. I mean, do you guys know about cacao in this way? I've heard of it, but I didn't know much about it, so thank you for educating.
Absolutely. And they're all, there's different sources. So this one's very special.
Cool. Excellent. And how can people find you?
They can find me on, I have 2 websites, but the easiest one is yourplacetoheal.com. I have a solstice ceremony that's happening on December 20th at Soma Space, and I am launching some online classes. I have a private practice, so that's the best way you can contact me, through my website and see what else I offer.
We'll put the link in the comments
Okay,
too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions out there? Is there anything you'd like to add that you want to share with people that we didn't cover? Any questions?
Really, just I hope you're finding the support that you need. There's so many paths, and finding what resonates with you.
That's true. That's so great these days compared to the old days where it was just allopathic medicine and that was pretty much it in our culture.
Right.
Yeah.
But coming back to natural healing, this is a piece of it, and really energy medicine.
I was just gonna say that
in a tremendous way.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
There's a lot of exciting discoveries that are happening.
You know, I was just watching the news last night, and I heard about there are these new superbugs that our bodies, because of the stuff that's in the water and the stuff they're feeding the animals and just everything, we're not allowed to. Oh, good, a question. We're not allowed. Our bodies are not going to be able to fight off these superbugs, and so like we might find a cure for stuff, but then something else is going to come up. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, that's because until we figure out like this mind body spirit connection and get that dialed in, there's always going to be some physical ailment that we're going to have problems with until we all come together and figure out that everything's connected.
Right.
And we have to heal from various levels, not just the physical.
Absolutely. Right.
So let's see what this question is. Pure cacao is actually being used as an amplifier with other substances and, can you see that? And clubland. What? In the clubland to produce more. Oh, I get it. Yeah, thanks, Norma.
And there's definitely, as I mentioned, different ways. I mean, I find I don't drink alcohol that much these days. I find cacao can be a really wonderful alternative to alcohol, and one, because it's bringing us into a heart space and also grounding us. I find even myself at times, we're not always in our body and grounded, especially with all the distractions that are constantly bombarding us. It's another reason why I encourage people to get, including myself, out in nature as much as possible. Like, and put your phone away and really just take it in.
I got you.
Having that really intentional connection.
That's part of that question that I asked earlier about how can people like get back connected. And one thing is to get out in nature, put away your phone. Don't bring your phone with you, although it's hard because you want to take pictures.
I know. I do. I take a ton of pictures, but at least can we carve out a little bit of time that we just
go within, connect with nature, just connect with spirit, and just try to be still and not all distracted.
Right.
The noise.
I mean, even go for a hike. You don't have to necessarily sit in meditation, but just to really not having those distractions. I find is very helpful.
Right. Oh, we have another question. What is the best stone crystal for balance? Busy mom of 4, always taking care of my disabled mom. I feel so overwhelmed and unbalanced.
Yeah, understandable.
Good for balance.
I mean, there's so many options, and I often go back to what really, what do you feel called to? But for me, grounding stones are like smoky quartz is really great to create a grounding cord. Also using practices where you can, again, get outside, connect to the earth, finding ways to clear your energy. I often use stones in the bath. I take heavy Epsom salt baths after I do work with people, which I feel like is true for anyone that's in contact with the public often, especially for people that are very sensitive. We pick things up. So using an obsidian stone in the bath and I ask it as well as the water to clear out any energies that aren't mine. Those can be 2 just really simple practices that you can use.
That's right, because obsidian absorbs negativity. That's what I read.
Right, will clear things out.
Yeah. And I also recently read that unakite is good for emotional balancing too. Does that help, Cassie? And thanks, Normac, for your statement before. That added a lot. Thank you very much. Okay, any last questions out there? Really appreciate your input and your participation. Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up then. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And remember, if you have any other questions that you think of later, please feel free to ask in the comments, and I'm sure Lorin will be able to answer them for you. Oh, thanks, Dave. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you Monday for Metaphysical Monday, and the 420 contest on Tuesday. Cheers. Oops.